I'm Algenon and welcome back to Eat, Drink Triad, your number one source for what's happening in the food and beverage scene right here in your local backyard. We talk a lot about restaurants and what's going on right here in the Triad area. I am honored to bring these stories and these conversations to you, but it would be completely impossible without our sponsors. And there's so many sponsors that I will not list each one of them, but we do want to thank our sponsors for supporting the program and not just supporting the show, but supporting the entire Eat, Drink, Triad program. If you are not aware, make sure you are following us on Instagram. Search out Eat, Drink, Triad on Instagram. Check out your IGTV. We're constantly putting up videos there. We're very active on Facebook, so search Eat, Drink, Triad there. And then if you're not a subscriber to our YouTube channel, make sure you go do so because there's a lot of great content coming out on the YouTube channel. So without our subscribers or our sponsors, this would be completely impossible. And also stay tuned to WTOB. Every single week, we announce the top restaurant pick of the week, and that happens right on WTOB. Now, we talk a lot about food in terms of restaurants, but I always like to remind people how food actually connects people. I always say food is love because food requires a sacrifice. Food connects and engages people, and it brings people together across diverse backgrounds. One of the things that we just announced was a partnership with Habitat for Humanity of Forsyth County. On my last episode, I had George Redd, who's the Chief Program Officer at Habitat, talking about the Youth Culinary Arts Program. And so if you missed that episode, I encourage you to go to eatdrinktriadpodcast.com, download it, check it out. Or you can also go to Pandora, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you like to download your favorite podcasts. That episode is available, and it's very, very powerful conversation. Today, I have a good friend, very honored to reconnect with Reverend Willard Bass, one of the co-founders of SHARE. We talk a lot about restaurants on this program, but sometimes we don't talk about those areas of the community that are underserved when it comes to food, and most specifically, healthy food. And SHARE is redeveloping a vacant grocery store on Peters Creek Parkway into what they call the Harvest Market, which is a co-op. And they've made considerable progress over the last few years, winning city and county support, and they are getting very, very close to being open. And it brings me such great pleasure to introduce you to Reverend Willard Bass, one of the co-founders of SHARE. Reverend Bass, how are you, man?
I'm fine, Algenon. Thank you for reaching out and for the opportunity to come and have a conversation with you about SHARE Cooperative and the Harvest Market.
Well, I first learned about SHARE at an invitation from you to come down and visit with you at your office. And we sat and you talked me through a lot of what you all are trying to do down at the co-op. For my audience that probably have never heard of SHARE, doesn't know anything about the Harvest Market, probably doesn't even know you've been working on this project for the last several years. Just give us a recap of what you've been through up to this point here.
Well, initially we started this project because of our interest in wanting to really be engaged in the community. I actually also am the director for the Freedom Triad IDR, the Institute of Discipline and Racism. And we were looking at ways that we could be intentional around how we understand the things that have conditioned socialized historically, and discrimination is certainly a place where that exists. And so we talk a lot about anti-racism and how systemic racism works. And so while we were doing that, we really decided that we wanted to take a look at our community and see what was going on, that we could connect the trainings and the different versions of diversity work that folks are doing and bring it into one place where we could actually accomplish a solution around an issue. And food became that issue. We met with the city and they told us about these places in our community where food deserts exist. I mean, I didn't even know if food desert existed before I started this work, but Winston-Salem actually has now, after a couple of years, they have actually 21 food deserts. And it's the idea of a community not having access to healthy, affordable, and nutritional food. And so we decided to jump in about 5 years ago and began to establish our mission around helping provide food for folks in insecure communities, and at the same time, unite that community around this idea of living, working, and doing business together. The idea is that historically we have been separated, if you will, and we want to figure out a way that we can have a space that people come into and call it a neutral space. The SHARE Center is a place where that happens, where people come in and share ideas. We have to do some different types of training. We've done training on education on food preparation and food nutrition. We've also done things around pop-up kinds of food markets with farmers, that is, and we'll continue to plan for some of those things this summer. So our acronym SHARE means supplying honest and respectful engagement. And that's something that we think is very critical and important, that we want to do. We want to supply honest and respectful engagement around everything we do. And so we have, since the establishment of the infrastructure, like Algenon said, we have a location down here. As a matter of fact, we have a couple locations. We have the center, which is our office space and community gathering space at 603. Then we have the build out, the big space, which is where the large store will be. It's at 635, which is right up front. And then we have 663, which is the location where the Harvest Mini Market is located. So we're operating out of the Harvest Mini Market now. We have an online site that you can go to. You can either go through the Harvest Market .store, or you can go through the SHARE Cooperative .coop and be able to connect with us there. We've done a lot of things to try to make this particular location one that is predominantly organic and sustainable. So we have a mix of something like 70% organic, 30% staples of food. We're set up, it's a business, it's not a giveaway. And so we have levels of discounts that we can provide, for folks who come in and need assistance. The model is such that it's member driven. We have about 450 or so members. And through our membership purchases, we enable individuals to come in who need help to get help through our funds and credits that are set aside. So I'll stop there and we can pick up from there.
Reverend, you mentioned a concept that's probably foreign to many listeners if they've never heard it before. I know up until several years ago, it was a term that was foreign to me. A food desert. When someone hears that phrase, food desert, it probably conjures up a lot of different images, and they say, "Well, that doesn't make sense. I see a food line in East Winston. I see a McDonald's in East Winston. I see a Popeye's chicken in East Winston. There's food there." Help the more naive listener to better understand that phrase, food desert, and then as a tag along to that question, how does a food desert even get created?
It's a good question. I'll start with the second part of that question. Well, the idea of the federal government has a designation. They call it food deserts, and food deserts are places where individuals, communities don't have access to food within a mile or so of their location. That either they can get to that either through, and have transportation or lack transportation. So the idea of a food desert is a place where, number one, there isn't a food store that provides healthy, nutritional choices of food, fresh produce, and also that it's not accessible within a mile or two of where the person lives. What causes food deserts is, again, it's about disparities. It's about economic, lacking. Communities don't have the resources, to have most large stores, most grocery stores come in locations based on the demographics and the ability of a community to pay or buy food. And that's been the historical, definition of it. Now, the food deserts here in Winston-Salem were identified by, again, the demographics and the income source, and also the location of food stores related to the communities. So the location that we have here is actually in the even though it's an area that's projected to grow within the next 5 to 10 years, it actually is in the foot, I'd say, of a food desert. And it made it very accessible for us as a business because we wanted to be at a place where we weren't having to deal with a lot of the different kinds of disparities and have a shot at really, making the business go, build a model for, if you will, the co-op food model, and then be able to replicate that in the future.
You mentioned that sometimes these food deserts get created because, the more larger grocery stores or the chains or the more market-based enterprises have chosen not to go into those areas.
Right.
Some people may argue they choose not to go into those areas for a number of structural challenges that they or obstacles that they find difficult to overcome.
Sure.
What's different about the harvest market business model that allows you to overcome those challenges that the big grocers don't seem to be able to overcome?
Well, big grocers, their motivation is the bottom line, and so they're looking at the idea of the number one is about how much profit they can make. Well, and most of them are what do you call it, absentee landlords, so to speak. And so we are located right here in Winston-Salem, and the community is a part of who we are by fact of the membership, and so that we are. Our goal is not the bottom line being money alone. Our goal is to provide a healthy and vibrant community, and one that is finds ways that you can connect across whatever demographics that you have. And so primarily, again, the fact that ours is not driven by the bottom line alone, and the fact that we're local and we're going to be here for a while makes the difference, in our plans and the larger stores.
And you mentioned that your business model is not driven by the bottom line, which is typical for what I describe more as a social enterprise. I think about like Providence Kitchen here in town that's ran by Second Harvest Food Bank, which is more of a social enterprise that gives training opportunities and job opportunities for those who want to go work in culinary or the hospitality sector. They also rely heavily on corporate and individual donations and sponsorships. Is Harvest Market and obviously the SHARE Co-op, are they in need of that same kind of financial support from the community?
Exactly. That's a good question, a good point. And what we have found, though, is that our model, we set it up initially as a nonprofit. At least that was the goal. But then as we got into understanding how co-ops work, the co-op had to be a business, and as a business, then it could not have a nonprofit designation. So what we did then, we set up two entities. We set up the Harvest Market as the business model, and then we set up SHARE Inc. as the nonprofit model. And it's through that nonprofit model then that we are able to go out and get grants, for programmatic things, mostly related to things like educational type of things. The food pharmacy, is a piece of that. And then also those folks who, just have benevolence and they want to make a contribution, if you will, in the effort that we're doing. And so that's the way. You're right. We're all going to have additional funding sources, and we have chosen to use a nonprofit sector as a means of getting us there. And Mitchell, you also mentioned about jobs, the Harvest Market. The full store will have about 25 jobs initially when we open the door. And the idea is that we want to focus on the folks who need the jobs. We want to focus on the ones who can come with us and learn, and expand and grow. The jobs will be at all different levels. And so we're hoping to be able to make a difference in providing, some taxes for our community, and at the same time to provide jobs for those who are, in need of jobs.
If you're just now joining us, you are listening to Reverend Willard Bass, who is the co-founder of SHARE, which is a nonprofit here in Winston-Salem that is working to redevelop a vacant grocery store on Peters Creek Parkway into what we will soon be known as Harvest Market. And they certainly need you all to support them. Not only go visit the store when it's open, but they also need your donations and your financial support to see this all the way through. So I would certainly encourage people to do so. If you do want to hear the extended version of this conversation, you can certainly go to eatdrinktriadpodcast.com, where you'll get to hear the full episode, or you can go check it out on YouTube at our Eat Drink Triad channel, or you can download the podcast on Apple, Pandora, or Spotify. Reverend, to go back to the support part of it, there was a co-op grocery store that opened in East Greensboro that didn't quite make it. And from my interpretation and analysis, they didn't make it because they never really got full support from the community around them. So they didn't have the market support. The people just weren't visiting the store often and frequent enough. They were driving past the store, quite frankly, going down to Walmart on the east side of Greensboro. What are you guys, how does that play into your model? And have you thought about how do you overcome that challenge of just getting people to come into the store and not just go to the place where you can get the cheapest eggs, milk, and bread?
Right. Well, we initially used that particular model over in Greensboro as our model, and we developed relationships with them. So we had a lot of good interaction with them, and we followed them, until the doors closed. And the very things like you're talking about were really the key things, and that is this idea of marketing our store, that it is a community store. It is built to handle and market to the immediate community, but also we want it to be available for everyone. And so we pitch ours as being, a co-op that's open for everyone. And so we've had meetings across the community, outside of West Salem, if you will, and we've gone to churches, we've gone to different nonprofits, and also municipal departments, and have been able to pitch our business as one that's not going to serve just the immediate community around, but it's going to serve our community as a whole. And that from the perspective of the community as a whole is what we would tell those folks is that, this is something where you can participate in, if you want to make a difference, it's something that you can, become a member and make a difference from Clemensville or Kernersville, any of those surrounding areas. We have pitched the idea that this is not just a local food market, but it's also a community food market that we hope everyone will feel open and willing to come in and buy. And that's why this particular one, we decided to pitch it as a 70% organic and 30% sustainable, because we know that this area and a lot of folks around the suburbs, suburban areas are really looking for, if you will, this idea of high grade, quality types of foods. And so we're trying to, have a combination of those kinds of things in order to attract folks to come in. Organic food costs a little bit more, and so we have specials, we have discounts that we offer for folks in order to attract them and get them to come back. So.
No, I think that's helpful. And I was looking, we've been talking today more conceptually about the harvest market, but you guys actually already have some operations up and running. And I did notice on Facebook that you've got the food pharmacy as well as your harvest mini market. Talk a little bit about the food pharmacy and what that is about.
Well, what we were finding when we were doing the demographics and also the data, and there's a lot of different studies that's been done, that there's some medical issues that exist, in our communities: high blood pressure, diabetes, these kind of low level. I call them low level because those are the ones that could be treated with foods. And so we partnered with the local medical community and was able to get a grant to do a pilot, and the grant is now ending. And the whole idea of the grant was to develop the process, if you will, and the procedures for how this food pharmacy is going to work. And the idea is for the medical communities to write scripts. We have a script that each doctors will write for the patients, and the scripts were they would give the script to the patient. They would come here and pick up their food, based on, what their medical issue would be. We've connected with local, our pilot project was done with the United Health, centers. Also, we've done some things with the Shalom Project now, and we're reaching out to do more of the food pharmacy kinds of things, because it is something that's a big deal, in the healthcare community as well. There are some other things, though, that we're finding out that there's opportunities because of COVID and the number of people who actually need food, that there is a potential, or at least a source for us to do boxes that are outside the food pharmacy part of it, which means that doctors won't have to write prescriptions for those. So we have begun to work in that area as well. Some of the other, areas in our community have already, been doing things like that, and we had the opportunity to partner with some of the organizations to do a little bit of that. But again, our focus is this idea of food pharmacy, where medical communities would write scripts, and the scripts then would be given to the patients, and the patients would either come to our site, or we would provide those scripts filled for them at the site where the doctor is located. So.
And I know you're working with United Health Centers and Dr. LaShawn Huntley is over there, really good brother. And then if you're not familiar with United Health Centers, go learn about them because they're also equally doing a lot of great work. Not just here in Winston-Salem, but throughout the region. They have patients coming to see them from as far north as Virginia. And last year we actually fed their staff a number of times through our Eat, Drink, Triad Meals program that was targeted at feeding frontline workers. So a lot of respect for LaShawn and his crew over at United Health Centers. The Harvest Mini Market, is that just sort of a mini version of what we would see in the actual grocery store once it opens up? Or
well, I think it is, but I don't think you could get the overall concept because there's a lot of pieces that we can't do in a mini market. Things like, a hot deli. One of the things that we're going to do is have a hot deli where our chef that, prepares, if you will, health related, types of meals, right? And you can come in there and eat there, or you can order to go in the larger space. There'll also be some community space where folks can come in and, have access to Wi-Fi and, do things with community. And there's going to be a space for children as well. If parents come and bring children in, there'll be a space for children to come. And so the whole idea is to be about community within the larger setting, but at the same time, be able to provide this broad cross section of different foods, of different produce. A major part of our work is this idea of fresh produce. And so we've connected with local farmers. We have a couple of farmers that we work with now. We order from them, regularly, and we hope to build our list, more with more farmers. But the idea is to have, locally, freshly grown produce there in the store for folks to be able to purchase on a daily basis.
I really like that. As we get ready to wrap up, I'll just make this comment. I really like the idea of the produce component. I recently reconnected with Dr. Wayne Patterson, who has Neighbors Helping Hands, and his organization has taken over the Liberty Street Farmers Market. And so we've connected him to some resources to help him grow and sustain what he's doing over there. One of the visions that we have for Eat, Drink, Triad, we would love to get behind a program that would really work with the youth and the families on the east side of town, help and show them how to maybe do a little small garden in their backyard and utilize that produce to actually sell either at the farmers market or sell to a harvest market. And so you have this idea by doing it this way, or at least my vision is by doing it this way, is that you teach you teach these individuals and families about production. You teach them about distribution, you teach them about retail, and not only are they learning to grow their own food, which is healthy, but they're actually learning more about how small business would work too. So, hopefully we can keep going in that direction. I'd love to see a program of that nature, come into fruition as well. As we wrap up, Reverend, is there anything else you'd like to mention, or you just want to make sure our audience knows about in regards to Harvest Market? Or
yeah, in regards to that, in addition to that, rather, that you mentioned about the youth, the one thing that we have said, though, that we're committed to here at the SHARE Center is to provide space for youth to come in and to learn about, what we're doing. So over the summer, we're going to develop a program for youth to come in and to begin to learn about co-ops and to learn about, fresh, produce and healthy eating. And so that'll be a component. It's not completely what you're talking about, but it is a piece of that work. And so we hope to be able to connect in, with folks who are interested in helping us raise, our future leaders, the individuals, people who are going to want to be as educated as they can around all of these areas. So that's one thing that we're looking forward to. And we're going to be diverse. We're going to pull in folks from across the communities of color, if you will. And so so that everyone has an opportunity to be a part of that. Again, the SHARE Cooperative in Winston-Salem is www.share-ws.coop. And the Harvest Mini Market is harvestmarket.store, www.harvestmarket.store, the two places where you can get information about the overall programming for SHARE Cooperative, and also go online, and shop, be able to buy some things online, become a member as well. You can do that while you're online, and then begin to help us to build this thing we're calling a flourishing Winston-Salem for all. The idea of everybody being able to live, to work, shop, and to flourish together. That's the vision for it, and that's the goal that we have for our work that we're doing here. We certainly appreciate the opportunities to come and be with you today, Algenon, and we hope that from this, folks will inquire and come out and want to learn more about us and become a part. We are definitely open to all the different gifts and talents that folks will bring to us. So thank you very much.
Reverend Willard Bass, he's the co-founder of SHARE, which is redeveloping a vacant grocery store on Peters Creek Parkway into Harvest Market. And I want to personally encourage my friends, supporters, and those that listen to the show to make sure you also support them. And as Reverend would probably tell you from the pulpit, they're going to need your time, your talent, and your treasure over at Harvest Market. So please consider doing so. Go check them out online. You can start following them online. You can get updates so that you know what's happening in terms of the grand opening of Harvest Market when that does take place. Also want to remind my listeners that we are in the middle of releasing our Lexington video series. For all of you that thought Lexington was all about barbecue, you are sadly mistaken. We have been highlighting in a 4-part series all the great culinary talent and restaurant options that are down in Lexington. We just released part 2 of the 4-part series where we highlight Chef Nyla Carey, an African-American woman who opened Lulu's Seafood in Lexington. And it's honestly some of the best seafood I've ever had, some of the best crab and mac and cheese I've ever had. So if you can get down to Lexington, please go see Chef Carey. Tell her Algenon sent you. Until next time, y'all stay locked in.